mechanical.
Mechanical digestion. What means mechanical digestion? How the tongue digests mechanically the food. What it's doing inside the oral cavity during the eating.
Pushing. No? Yes.
Pushing, yes. Next, mixes the food with what?
Saliva.
With saliva, by which the hard food transforms into the soft balls. Yes? Next, organ of taste. Yes? Because on the tongue there are located taste buds which takes the stimuli of different taste and also general sensations. What means general sensations? Touch, temperature, pain. For example, the tea is hot or cold. Yes? Sweet, the touch and the pain. Next, function, very important. But that is not for digestive system. Swallowing is for digestion. Yes? But other function not for digestion and not for digestive system. What I'm doing now?
Speaking.
Yes, or helps in, or organ of speech. Yes? Shape of tongue. Look here. From here to this. Yes? Tongue has two surfaces. The superior surface, which faces toward the palate, called dorsal surface or back of the tongue. And the opposite surface, here is visible, faces to the floor of the oral cavity, called inferior surface.
I knew it. It couldn't be caudal surface or something logically, you know.
Which caudal surface?
If you're dorsal, then it's the rest, or no?
Dorsum, back of the tongue,
Okay.
called this surface.
Okay.
Why and how, I don't know.
Okay.
Next, tongue has three main parts. Anterior end of the tongue, called tip or apex of the tongue. This middle portion, middle large part of the tongue, called body of the tongue. And this posterior part of the tongue, called root or radix of the tongue. How are separated root and radix, with root and body? By this line, which has shape like angle and called terminal line. In front of terminal line is body, behind is root of the tongue. Okay? Next, on the dorsal surface of the body, apex and lateral borders of the tongue, located papilles or that taste buds. There are 5 different types of papilles. They have different names. They call filiform papilles, conical papilles, foliate, fungiform, and velate or circumvallate. We cannot see that papilles on the surface of the tongue because they are very, very small, microscopical structures. They have different shapes and the names, because their names differ. For example, conical papilles called because they have shape like cone, or foliate, a shape like leaf. Yes. Next, but largest papilles are circumvallate or vellate papilles. These round structures, the number of vellate papilles about 7 to 12 or 15 and located in front of terminal line, these papilles. Next, and because on the dorsal surface of tongue located these papilles and because the dorsum of back of the tongue is not smooth, We cannot distinguish papilla separately by the visually which is filiform, which is fungiform, because they are very, very small. But they give the surface of dorsal surface of tongue, not smooth. The root of the tongue is not also smooth, yes? Visible elevation, depressions. Why? Because on the dorsal surface of root portion of the tongue located many lymphatic follicles, lymphatic tissue. Aggregation of lymphatic tissues which are located on the dorsal surface of the root forms tonsil, which called lingual tonsil. Or, we have paired of palatine tonsils between palatoglossal and palatopharyngeal arches. And now on the root of the tongue we have unpaired lingual tonsil, aggregation of lymphatic tissue. Next, in the middle of the dorsal surface of tongue, visible groove, yes, sulcus, which called median groove of the tongue. From this groove, which is visible on the surface of tongue, inside, within the tongue, passes fibrous tissue, which forms the septum of the tongue, and that septum divides the tongue into two halves, right and left halves, and the septum serves for insertion of muscles of the tongue. I think the tongue is muscular organ, yes? Muscles of the tongue divides into two groups, intrinsic muscles and extrinsic muscles. Intrinsic muscles means muscles by which is formed the tongue, or which are within the tongue. Extrinsic muscles connect to the tongue with different parts of with bones, generally, bones of the skull. The muscles by which is formed the tongue are along of dorsal surface or dorsal surface of the tongue is formed by muscle which has name superior longitudinal muscle. Why that muscle called so? Because the muscular fibers have longitudinal direction from root to the apex and located along of dorsal side, or they form the dorsal surface of the tongue. Opposite, along of inferior surface of the tongue, located inferior longitudinal muscles, which have same direction, muscular fibers, yes? Or tongue is formed by superior longitudinal, inferior longitudinal muscles. But what are between these two muscles? Vertical muscles, which connects these two muscles together, have vertical direction. And last, transverse muscles. If they call transverse, that means they have transverse direction. But from where to where? What we have in the middle of tongue? Septum. Yes? From septum to the left border of tongue, from septum to the right border of the tongue. Understood? Or, again, superior longitudinal, inferior longitudinal, transverse muscles and vertical muscles are the intrinsic muscles of the tongue, by which is formed totally all parts of the tongue. Extrinsic muscles of tongue are, listen how they call, styloglossal. From where to where?
From styloglossal to the tongue.
To the tongue. Next, genioglossal muscle. What means genius?
A muscle?
Mental spine. Do you remember? Which bone has mental spine? Mandible. Inner surface of the mandible. In the middle of inner side, we have mental spine. Yes? Look, here is visible the section of the mandible. Mental spine. This is genioglossal muscle. Starts by narrow portion from the mental spine, but after the mental spine, the muscular fibers dilates like fan and passes to the inferior surface of tongue. from mental spine to the inferior surface of tongue. The name of this muscle is genioglossal muscle. But the muscular fibers from the inferior surface of tongue enters the tongue, passes upward. And inside the tongue, they called vertical muscles, or vertical muscles of tongue, which are intrinsic muscles of tongue. That muscle is continuation of the genioglossal muscle within the tongue. Understood? And the last muscle, extrinsic muscle, you know, which connects with tongue with other parts.
With the soft part?
Yes, how called that muscle?
Palatoglossal.
Palatoglossal muscle. Yes? Next, the muscles of tongue, papillus, this tonsil, how is covered? By mucous coat. Yes? Mucous coat from the dorsal surface of tongue continues on the ventral surface, inferior surface of the tongue. And in the middle of the inferior surface of tongue, the mucosa forms fold, plica. This is plica, mucosal fold, which from the inferior surface of tongue continues on the floor of the oral cavity, or starts from the middle of inferior surface of the tongue and finishes on the middle of floor of the oral cavity. The name of this structure, mucosal structure, is frenulum lingua. At the lecture, I think, explaining frenulum lingua. Sometimes this frenulum, sometimes in some babies at the birth, has long frenulum. Long means what? It connects the floor of the oral cavity with finishes near to the apex. And this shape of frenulum, now look, it prevents free movement of the tongue. In this case, the baby begins speak not good speaking because tongue don't move freely. But it is not problem. Cutting of the frenulum causes freely movement of the tongue. Understood? Next, finishes the tongue. Next part, salivary glands. Small salivary glands located in all under the mucosa of all parts of the proper oral cavity, vestibular part of the oral cavity also. They are located under the mucosa of gums. These are small salivary glands which are located on the palate. Small salivary glands located visible vestibular part and the gums. Yes, these are also small salivary glands. Under the mucosa of cheeks also, mucosa of floor of the oral cavity, everywhere. But we have three pairs of large salivary glands. These are parotid gland, sublingual salivary gland, and submandibular salivary gland. Where is located parotid gland? Look here at the picture. Tell me where it is located.
Next to the auricle.
Next, what means next to the auricle? Next, front, below, posteriorly, superiorly, where?
Anteriorly.
Anteriorly and not inferiorly. Anteriorly and inferiorly. Yes? On which muscles located parotid gland? Which muscle is here? Masseter muscle. On the masseter muscle. Yes? Parotid gland, or generally the salivary glands, releases saliva. How that saliva leaves the gland and empties or how flows where, in which part, in oral cavity. How? By the ducts. Yes. Parotid gland has duct. This is the duct of the parotid gland, which empties, opens in vestibular part of the oral cavity, cheek region, on the mucosa of cheek, but where? At the level of, this is upper jaw, yes? At the level of upper second molar teeth. Generally, you know the teeth, yes? The posterior big teeth called molars, yes? We have 3 molars, first, second, third. This is the level of second molar teeth. Next salivary gland is sublingual. If it's called sublingual, that means it is located under the tongue. But where under the tongue? How is formed the floor of the oral cavity? Again, tell me. Mylohyoid, geniohyoid. That mylohyoid muscle has 2 sides, yes? Superior, inferior. Superior surface forms the floor of the oral cavity. Inferior surface is covered by skin. Yes? Sublingual salivary gland located on the mylohyoid, on the superior surface of the mylohyoid muscle under the tongue. Understood? Sublingual salivary gland has ducts. 1 main duct or necessary duct and many means about 10 or 12 accessory ducts, small ducts, with ducts visible here, small ducts. Where opens main duct of the sublingual gland and where opens accessory ducts. Again, this picture, visible frenulum lingua, yes, and the floor of the proper oral cavity. Mucosa on the floor of the proper oral cavity, laterally from the frenulum, forms oblique direction paired folds, which called plica sublinguales or sublingual folds. This is one, here will be another. That sublingual fold has medial end and here will be lateral end, yes? On the medial end of the sublingual fold, located opening, hole, which has special name, caruncula sublingualis, sublingual caruncle, where opens main duct of the sublingual gland. But along of sublingual fold, there are many small holes. For what? For accessory main ducts, accessory ducts of the sublingual salivary glands. Next salivary gland is submandibular. Where is located? Sublingual located on the superior surface of the mylohyoid, submandibular under the mylohyoid or between the skin and mylohyoid muscle. This is submandibular gland. That submandibular salivary gland has only 1 duct, like parotid gland. And that duct opens together with main duct of the sublingual salivary gland into the sublingual caruncule, here. Or caruncule, this opening is for 2 ducts together, main duct of sublingual and duct of the submandibular salivary gland. Can we do some over 2?